Talked a lot in recent weeks about the calming down of the Canadian real estate market. We have fresh numbers out of Greater Vancouver today. Seems to suggest, yes, there is a calming. Some people even use the word cooling compared to the frenzy we had during the pandemic. Let's bring in Steve Saretsky, a realtor at Oakland Realty, author of the Saretsky Report. Steve, you're on the ground. You're seeing what's happening there. We did see sales transactions pull back a month over month. What does it look like to you?
Yeah, there's definitely a noticeable cooling. I mean, I think anyone will agree that the last 8-9 months have been unsustainable. I mean, we've had record sales growth, and clearly we had record sales, which ultimately looks like they've peaked in March. I would argue that was probably the top. And we're just seeing like a noticeable cooling. So what you're seeing, don't get me wrong, it's still a tight market. You're still seeing multiple offers on houses and townhouses, things that people want during a pandemic, but what we're seeing now is fewer offers on houses. So, a house that would have got, say, 8 or 9 offers, now you're seeing maybe gets 1 or 2 or maybe 3 offers. So, definitely seeing a noticeable slowdown, and that's certainly encouraging.
Is there a change, do you think, in the market psychology? I mean, obviously there's a lot of complicated factors at play. There's borrowing costs. There's what the Bank of Canada is worried about, that people think prices go up forever. There's buyer exhaustion. I mean, what do you think is leading this cool down?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's similar to the run-up, right? I think a lot of it is human emotions. So if we look at it at the onset of the pandemic in, June, July, everybody was like, oh my gosh, I'm spending so much time at home, I need more space. And so again, the rush for detached properties, 3-bedroom townhouses, cottage properties, people just desperately wanting more space. I think that narrative is starting to change now, right? I mean, now we're seeing, here in BC, 65% of people, I believe, now have their first shot, their first vaccination dose. And, we're this 1-dose summer, right, where we're opening up. And I think people are going to be desperate to get out of their houses and go and socialize. And so I think that, real estate shopping, in my opinion, is going to take a back seat. And I think we're starting to see that preliminarily. It's starting to show up in the data anyways.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with our radio partners a couple of days ago, and I almost gasped audibly when someone said, "What, we're actually going to think about something other than real estate in Canada over the next several months?" That would be an interesting switch. You talked about everyone rushing to get those cottages, to get those single-family homes. Are you hearing anything about buyer remorse? I mean, when I moved to the suburbs, it didn't take a pandemic, and I'll tell you, my wife was not happy for about a year to be living out here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've heard of the buyer's remorse just yet. I mean, don't get me wrong, I certainly think that will probably set in for some people anyways over the next 12 months when people get back to the office. I mean, at least again here in Vancouver, we're starting to see some of the larger companies asking people, highly recommending them to come in at least 3 times a week for some of them, right? So again, and maybe that transitions into 4 times a week. So I certainly think that there probably will be some buyer's remorse, and we'll definitely pay the premium, obviously, in January, February, March of this year at the sort of the height of the market. And so I think it's natural after seeing really what was the 30% run up in single family house prices in the suburbs. I mean, to think that we won't see at least some correction, I think is likely.
All right, let's talk about that. The fact of cooling prices, it seems that they're still growing, but month over month, that gap is starting to think you wouldn't be surprised to see a correction. What role do you think the stress test might play in all that?
I mean, I don't really look at the stress test as being a huge hurdle. I mean, yes, it's going to technically reduce purchasing power by 4.5%. But if you actually talk to a lot of the lenders and the bankers, there's some banks that are easing credit requirements. They're increasing, for example, their debt servicing requirements. In some ways, sort of offsetting part of the stress test. So, I mean, it might play a very minor role. I personally don't think it will. I think what we're seeing right now is just, record home sales across the nation, and a lot of demand being pulled forward. And again, with the reopening here, and hopefully this pandemic starting behind us, I just think that people get on with their lives, and I don't think housing is going to play as large of a role as it has over the last 10 months.
Now, I get the sense that calming, cooling, but not going off a cliff is exactly what the federal government wants to hear, probably what the Bank of Canada wants to hear, and the big banks themselves. Where's the danger here for Canadian real estate? Because we've been warned for years and years and years that things could go very wrong. Do you think there's a danger of things going wrong?
I mean, I think there's always some danger, right? I mean, obviously we're seeing, the Bank of Canada slowly trying to unwind some of their liquidity provisions. We're seeing the federal government coming in with like a slightly increased stress test. So it seems like everybody's kind of trying to like rein this thing in. And I think, while those measures might have some impact, we're seeing like a natural correction. So again, there's certainly risk. We had a massive, national home prices are up 23% year over year. I mean, that's just so unsustainable. We've pulled a lot of demand forward. And I think like the one factor I think is going to be important to watch is how does immigration bounce back? I mean, that's been the huge driver for this housing crunch over the last, 4 or 5 years is, the Trudeau government pulling in 400,000, new residents every year. Is how is that going to recover? Sort of in a post-pandemic world, is it going to come back to that number? Or is it going to take some time to get back there? So I think that's going to be a key determinant moving forward.